Right, so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I believe that the majority of people out there who are suffering with a chronic condition and are looking to recover are putting too much reliance on the information that they consume online to provide them with a long-term and lasting solution to their issue. And you see, where the problem really starts in my eyes is that there's no way that it's viably possible for any of these creators online to know how your body is currently functioning at its most basic physiological level. And without any of this information, there's no possible way that these people can provide you with the tailored solution that you need in order to achieve that long-term recovery. And when I'm talking about this, I don't mean all of those health kits that you can order online and then get sent through to you in the post to measure certain variables. What I really mean is a thorough in-person neurological assessment that's able to identify how your body is responding to various daily novel stressors and whether or not it's functioning as it should be functioning. Because more often than not, in the case of POTS, dysautonomia, chronic fatigue syndrome and long COVID, the body is operating in a way where it's having to make tons of adaptations just to execute a very simple task. And the reason why these adaptations typically tend to occur in the body of somebody with one of these conditions is because the inbuilt and innate systems that were originally responsible for being able to handle them have either become damaged, dysfunctional, or just not working as they were originally intended to work. So the body ends up working so much harder and exerts so much more energy just performing the very bare minimum that it leaves you with such little expendable energy to go about your day with. And in the end, if you do decide to test the waters by pushing your body that much further up to its limits, then what will end up happening is it will end up crashing and becoming far more symptomatic. Basically, what ends up happening is that the demand outstrips the supply because your body is having issues swiftly distributing oxygenated blood to where it needs to be in the body. Yet you want to go about your everyday trying to live as much as you can like any normal, fit and healthy person. I want to back up for a minute though and explain why I believe the vast majority of sufferers are going round in circles in their attempts to recover. And first and foremost, above all else, I believe that most people are looking for solutions despite not knowing what it actually is that's causing their problem. People need to know how their body is functioning first in order to perform the correct exercises that are actually going to facilitate bringing their body back into a far more functional state. And that really brings me on to my next point, and that's that I truly don't believe for the majority of us with one of these chronic conditions that we have excess amounts or deficiencies of certain variables. Whilst they may have identified one of these markers as being too high or too low, it might not be as straightforward as simply removing or supplementing in that thing. What's far more likely is that that number is purely a reflection. It's at the end of a large chain reaction of events occurring within the body, and it's purely a byproduct of what's been produced as a result of tons of chemical reactions. And so if we can instead start to focus our attention on the source that starts this chain reaction of events, then we can impact a lot of these variables that lie further downstream. Again, it comes down to questioning how our body is utilizing what it's got to work with, rather than thinking that it just requires more or less of something. Most people are ignoring the elephant in the room as far as I'm concerned, and that's that why are the majority of functions that are occurring within our body automatically and unconsciously so often brought into our own conscious awareness? Because this is something that is very rarely experienced by fit and healthy people. Fundamentally, I believe that some sort of software problem has arisen in parts of our brain and sensory nervous system following either a concussion, infection, traumatic event, or damage caused as a result of certain medication, and it's severely limiting the way that our body is actually able to navigate the world. But I discuss all of this and so much more in the Unbeatable Blueprint online course. Here you'll learn about some of these complex neuronal pathways, and most importantly, I'll provide you with a step-by-step plan of exactly what you need to do to optimize their function to give you the best chance of recovering long term. How do we put an end to this cycle though? That is really the key question. Well, I truly believe that where it starts is that we need to obtain results from a thorough in-person neurological examination. And in my case, this was achieved when I went to see a trained chiropractic neurologist. And some of these tests involved a neurological examination with a cerebellar exam, autonomic tilt table testing, and also a video oculography eye exam. And from me going through these exams, the practitioner was able to pick up on certain areas of neuronal dysfunction, which really helped to explain why I was having so much difficulty performing the most basic daily tasks. In my online course, I spend close to 50 minutes going into this precise topic in detail, but ultimately, what ended up being discovered during the exam was that I was maintaining far less than ideal amounts of blood flow up to my head, especially whilst I was in a standing position. The main reason why this was happening was because I was hypocapnic, which meant that I had low amounts of carbon dioxide within my blood, and when this happens, it causes excess constriction of blood vessels, which was cutting off the blood supply up to my brain, and subsequently affecting every other process that the brain controls within the body. And the reason why this was coming about in the first place was because there were certain areas of neuronal hyperactivity occurring within my brain due to my brain not receiving accurate and adequate amounts of sensory information from the sensory division of my peripheral nervous system. And what this was causing was excess unconscious hyperventilation, so I was blowing off excess amounts of carbon dioxide. But once all of this was identified and I was able to get started on some very targeted neurological exercises in order to train these dysfunctional pathways, suddenly my brain calmed down, my carbon dioxide levels rose, and more blood flow was being sent to my brain, and in turn it was positively impacting all the processes within my body, allowing my body to function at a far more optimal state, and I became far less symptomatic. And one thought that was going through my head during this whole time that I actually found to be quite scary was the fact that I'd spent over 7 years desperately scouring the internet, trying to find a solution for my chronic condition, when meanwhile something was going on within my body that I would have never known about had it not been for this test. And why I find this quite scary is because I think of the thousands of people right now who are scouring through the internet, desperately researching an answer for their chronic condition. They've spent years or even decades trying to research these multiple solutions to multiple different issues that they think they might have, when in reality, it might just be one key dysfunction that's creating a myriad of downstream impacts. So yeah, please try and view this video from an optimistic as opposed to a pessimistic point of view, and know that all I'm trying to do is let you know that there is a way of dramatically reducing your symptoms and improving your quality of life. But I have to be upfront and realistic with you, and that's the fact that it is tough and it is hard work, and sometimes it does take a whole change in your paradigm in order to try to improve your chronic condition to this extent.